Have you ever felt like you're constantly running but never arriving anywhere safe? Like you're carrying an invisible weight of fear, self-doubt, and shame? If you're neurodivergent, this feeling might not just be anxiety, it could be complex PTSD or CPTSD. CPTSD isn't just about one traumatic event. It's about living through chronic stress, rejection, and invalidation, especially in a world that isn't built for you. In this video, we'll break down what CPTSD is, how it shows up in neurodivergence, and most importantly, what you can do to start feeling better. Complex PTSD, or CPTSD, develops from prolonged exposure to relational stress and trauma, things like chronic invalidation, emotional neglect, bullying, or feeling like you never truly belong. Unlike PTSD, which is usually triggered by a single traumatic event, CPTSD is the result of ongoing harm that teaches you that the world is unsafe and that you somehow are the problem. For neurodivergents, especially autistics and ADHDers, this trauma often comes from growing up in a society that doesn't accommodate our needs. We are often treated as difficult, too much, or not enough. We learn to mask, to overcompensate, to make ourselves smaller. Over time, this chronic invalidation can rewire our nervous system. CPTSD manifests in neurodivergence in ways that can deeply impact our daily lives, relationships, and self-perception. Many describe it as an unrelenting state of stress. Their nervous systems remain on high alert. Here are some of the most common experiences of CPTSD among neurodivergents. A constant sense of impending doom. Even when life appears stable, there is a persistent feeling that disaster is just around the corner. This can make it hard to relax, enjoy the present moment, or trust positive experiences. Neurodivergents with CPTSD often feel like they have to be prepared for the worst at all times. For example, someone gets a kind message from a friend, but instead of enjoying it, they immediately start worrying about whether they accidentally said something wrong in a past conversation. Negative exceptionalism. This is the belief that you are uniquely bad, unworthy, or fundamentally broken, worse than anybody else. Unlike traditional low self-esteem, negative exceptionalism convinces neurodivergents that they are an extreme outlier in their failure, deserving of rejection and suffering. For example, a neurodivergent professional gets positive feedback from a boss but dismisses it, assuming they were just being polite or that they somehow tricked people into thinking they are competent. Feeling marked by an invisible scarlet letter. A deep-seated shame convinces neurodivergents that they are permanently marked as defective or unworthy. This often leads to avoidance of social situations, fear of being found out, and an ongoing feeling that they are inherently different in a way that makes them unlovable. For example, a neurodivergent avoids dating because they feel like if anybody really knew them, they'd get disgusted and leave. The wounded healer complex. Many neurodivergents with CPTSD throw themselves into supporting others, even at the expense of their own well-being. They may feel that their only worth is in being useful to others while neglecting their own healing process. For example, a neurodivergent doctor overextends themselves with clients, refusing to take breaks because they feel they don't deserve rest if others are still suffering. Perfectionism. Perfectionism becomes a coping mechanism where neurodivergents feel they must perform flawlessly to be accepted. The slightest mistake can lead to overwhelming shame and fear of rejection. For example, an autistic student spends 5 extra hours rewriting an assignment, terrified that even a minor flaw might result in humiliation. People-pleasing. Saying yes when they want to say no, suppressing personal needs, and prioritizing others to avoid conflict is common. Neurodivergents may have learned that they are only valuable when they are useful, agreeable, or accommodating. For example, an ADHDer repeatedly agrees to social plans that overwhelm them because they fear that setting boundaries will push others away. Chronic self-doubt. Neurodivergents with CPTSD constantly second-guess themselves. They may assume they're always in the wrong, worry they've upset others, and feel incapable of making good decisions. For example, someone rereads an email 5 times before sending it, terrified that they used the wrong tone and will be misinterpreted. Over or under reliance on others. Some neurodivergents develop extreme independence, believing they must never rely on others, while others feel completely helpless, constantly seeking someone to rescue them. For example, a neurodivergent refuses to ask for help at work because they fear being perceived as incompetent, while another anxiously waits for a friend's guidance on every small decision. Difficulty with attachment. Attachment wounds show up as anxious attachment, fear of abandonment, avoidant attachment, fear of engulfment, or disorganized attachment, a mix of both. Neurodivergents with CPTSD may crave connection, but find relationships overwhelming, frightening, and exhausting. Anxious attachment may lead to intense fear of rejection and overcompensating to keep relationships, while avoidant attachment may cause withdrawal, emotional detachment, or suppression of needs. Disorganized attachment presents as a push-pull dynamic, wanting connection but fearing intimacy at the same time. For example, a person texts a friend multiple times in a panic when they don't respond quickly, but also feels smothered if someone checks in too often. Memory gaps. Many neurodivergents with CPTSD experience difficulty accessing their memories. It can feel like each passing year is locked away, inaccessible, as if key parts of life are missing. For example, a neurodivergent struggles to recall specific details about their childhood, feeling like those years happened to someone else. Hypervigilance. A constant state of alertness keeps the nervous system on edge, scanning for danger, even in safe environments. This can make relaxation and socializing incredibly difficult. For example, a neurodivergent closely monitors others' facial expressions, trying to predict potential conflicts before they arise. Relentless self-criticism. The inner critic is particularly harsh for neurodivergents with CPTSD. They may feel like they have to constantly assess themselves, ruminate on their actions, and preemptively shame themselves before others do. For example, a person replays conversations over and over, analyzing every word to figure out if they embarrass themselves or upset someone. Social avoidance. Many neurodivergents experience the spotlight effect, feeling like everyone is scrutinizing them. This leads to withdrawal from social settings to avoid judgment and potential rejection. For example, a person declines a group outing, convinced that everyone will notice how awkward they are and judge them for it. Distorted thinking. Cognitive distortions such as catastrophizing, black and white thinking, and personalizing reinforce CPTSD symptoms. Depressive thoughts become the lens through which neurodivergents view themselves, others, and the world. For example, a neurodivergent doesn't get a response to a message and assumes the recipient must secretly dislike them rather than considering the fact they may just be busy. Here's the thing. Healing isn't just about recognizing these patterns. Many neurodivergents with CPTSD struggle with the tension between wanting to heal and fearing what healing might require. This isn't just emotional, it's a survival mechanism. Psychiatrist Judith Herman describes this as the central dialectic of trauma, the internal battle between seeking truth and staying numb, between feeling and healing versus denial and survival. Here are some of the internal conflicts that often arise. Feeling and healing. I want to understand what happened to me. I crave the ability to feel my emotions. I want to share my story with others. I long for love and acceptance. I want to trust others. I want to depend on others. I want my needs to be acknowledged and met. Denial and survival. I fear that acknowledging the truth might destroy me. I'm terrified my emotions might engulf me. Sharing my story leaves me vulnerable to more dismissal, minimization, or rejection. I believe I'm unworthy of love. Trusting others carries the risk of disappointment, abandonment, and betrayal. Dependence will only open me up to more pain I'm not ready to endure. My needs don't deserve to be met. This internal conflict doesn't just happen in isolation. It plays out in relationships too. Many neurodivergents crave connection, but fear the vulnerability that comes with it. Therapist Robert T. Muller puts it simply: relationships are both poison and antidote. Trauma happens in relationships, but healing also depends on them. A lot of it comes down to how trauma affects the nervous system. According to polyvagal theory, our autonomic nervous system, ANS, cycles through 3 states: social engagement, mobilization, and immobilization, what I call social, scared, and stopped. These responses are natural survival mechanisms, but trauma can trap the nervous system in the scared or stopped states. When this happens, stress increases, self-regulation weakens, and cycles of avoidance become harder to break. Getting unstuck requires co-regulation, nervous system regulation through safe, supportive interactions. Simple cues like a gentle touch or a concerned frown can help shift the nervous system away from scared or stopped states. But for those with trauma, interpreting and responding to these cues can feel risky, even overwhelming, intensifying fears of re-traumatization. This difficulty in co-regulation isn't random. It's often the result of repeated relational wounds and systemic barriers that have shaped the nervous system of the neurodivergent over time. CPTSD in autistics and ADHDers doesn't come from nowhere. It often develops through chronic misattunement from caregivers, peers, teachers, and society at large. Many neurodivergents experience persistent microtraumas that compound over time, shaping how they see themselves and the world around them. Here are some common causes of CPTSD in neurodivergence. Chronic invalidation. From childhood, many neurodivergents are repeatedly told that their experiences aren't real or valid. Their sensory sensitivities are dismissed as overreactions, their executive functioning struggles are framed as laziness, and their social difficulties are interpreted as rudeness or defiance. Over time, this chronic invalidation teaches them that their needs don't matter, leading to deep-seated shame and self-doubt. For example, a child ADHDer struggles to complete homework and is repeatedly told by teachers and parents they're just not trying hard enough. The child then internalizes the belief that they are fundamentally incapable, rather than understanding they need different supports. Masking and camouflage. Neurodivergents often feel pressured to hide their true selves to fit into neurotypical norms. Masking their natural behaviors, such as stimming, info dumping, or needing extra processing time, can lead to chronic stress, emotional exhaustion, and a loss of identity. When they do show up as their authentic selves, they are punished by neurotypicals, and survival becomes about performance rather than genuine connection. For example, an autistic teenager forces themselves to maintain eye contact, suppress stimming, and engage in small talk, even though it feels unnatural and overwhelming. Over time, they lose touch with who they truly are and experience deep emotional exhaustion. Rejection and bullying. Many neurodivergents experience bullying or social rejection, especially during childhood. They are often perceived as weird or different, making them easy targets for cruelty. This persistent mistreatment reinforces feelings of being unwanted, flawed, or unworthy. For example, a young autistic girl who struggles with social cues is frequently excluded from group activities and mocked for being too intense. She learns to withdraw, assuming that her presence is a burden to others. Structural ableism. Neurodivergents don't just experience interpersonal trauma, they also face systemic barriers that reinforce their marginalization. Difficulty accessing neuroaffirming healthcare, employment discrimination, and lack of accommodations in schools and workplaces contribute to feelings of helplessness, frustration, and chronic stress. For example, an autistic adult applies for job after job, but is repeatedly turned away due to their unconventional communication style. They begin to believe that success is impossible for them, leading to learned helplessness and deep despair, chronic hypervigilance, and fear of rejection. Many neurodivergents develop hypervigilance not just from bullying, but from a lifetime of having to carefully monitor their behavior to avoid conflict. This heightened stress response can lead to extreme social anxiety and difficulty forming secure relationships. For example, a neurodivergent person constantly replays conversations in their head, analyzing every word to ensure they didn't accidentally offend anyone. They avoid social interactions altogether because the fear of rejection feels too overwhelming. Each of these experiences doesn't disappear with time. They shape how neurodivergents see themselves, how they navigate relationships, and how they exist in the world. The repeated message that they are wrong or broken embeds itself into their nervous system, leading to the chronic stress, hypervigilance, and emotional pain that defines CPTSD. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to healing. By understanding that these wounds are not personal failings, but the result of structural and relational harm, neurodivergents can begin to challenge these narratives and reclaim their sense of self. CPTSD in neurodivergence doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's shaped by ableism. When you grow up being told that your struggles aren't real, that you're just lazy, not trying hard enough, or being difficult, your nervous system adapts. It learns to treat the world as a place where you must constantly be on guard. Recovering from CPTSD is not about getting over it, but rather learning how to reclaim safety, self-worth, and connection in ways that honor your neurodivergent needs. Recovery is a process that requires patience, self-compassion, and the right strategies. Here are some approaches that can help neurodivergents manage and address their CPTSD. If you've been conditioned to downplay your trauma or believe that your struggles are simply part of life, you can begin by acknowledging what you experienced was real, harmful, and deserving of attention. For example, journaling about past invalidating experiences and how they affected you can help in recognizing long-term patterns of harm and internalized shame. Masking, as I mentioned, is a survival strategy, but it often comes at a cost: exhaustion, burnout, and the loss of self-identity. Finding safe spaces to unmask, even in small ways, can be a powerful step toward healing. Start by allowing yourself small moments of authenticity, such as stimming when needed, speaking in your natural communication style, or setting boundaries when something feels overwhelming. The inner critic, shaped by trauma and ableism, often convinces neurodivergents that they are broken or unworthy. Learning to challenge these thoughts can help shift negative self-perceptions. When you catch yourself engaging in harsh small talk, ask, "Would I say this to a friend?" Reframe negative thoughts with self-compassionate alternatives, such as, "I'm doing my best given the circumstances." While CPTSD can make relationships feel overwhelming, healing often happens in the presence of safe and validating people. Finding a community that respects neurodivergent experiences can make a significant difference. Seek out neuro-affirming therapists, peer support groups, or online spaces where your experiences are validated and understood. Trauma can make the world feel chaotic and unpredictable, so establishing structure in daily life can help create a sense of control and reduce anxiety. Develop routines that support your executive functioning and reduce overwhelm. Use planners, reminders, or time-blocking strategies to create a predictable rhythm in your day. Finding neuro-affirming therapeutic approaches to trauma that respect different ways of thinking and processing is crucial. If seeking therapy, look for professionals who are neuro-informed and understand sensory needs, communication differences, and alternative emotional processing styles. Many neurodivergents with CPTSD struggle with feeling unsafe, even in environments where no immediate danger is present. creating a sense of safety is key to managing trauma responses. Identify what soothes your nervous system. This could be weighted blankets, noise-canceling headphones, or specific routines. Engage in grounding exercises such as deep breathing or sensory regulation techniques to calm your body in stressful moments. Experiment with sensory tools such as fidget items, dim lighting, or specific textures to find what helps your body feel more regulated and comfortable. CPTSD and ableist expectations often push neurodivergents into cycles of burnout. Learning to prioritize rest and recognizing that productivity does not determine self-worth is essential for long-term healing. Build in moments of intentional rest, whether it's quiet time, engaging in special interests, or simply doing nothing without feeling guilt. Healing is not about reaching a fixed endpoint. It's about learning to live in ways that prioritize your well-being. Some days will be harder than others, and that's okay. Celebrate small wins, even if they seem insignificant. Healing is about progress, not perfection. If this video resonated with you, know that you are not alone. This is real, your experiences are real, and healing is possible. Let me know in the comments, how does CPTSD affect your life? And if you'd like more content like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so we can keep having these conversations. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.